Hey everyone, it is Natalie from Being Intentionally Creative. Before we get started today, I want to wish all my subscribers down in the USA a happy Memorial Day. I hope you have enjoyed your weekend, have done something fun. I hope the weather has been okay, that has allowed you to get outside if that's something that you were planning or going to be doing. Okay, I had one of my subscribers ask me about decoupage. I am not an expert in this by any stretch, and I will not say I am. I am learning as I go. I have been practicing. I've been trying some different things. And since I was asked to do a video about this, I will do and share with you what I know at this point. And I also recommend that if it's something you're really interested in, that you also check out other people who do this probably on a regular basis, more so than I do. I can share some of the things, as I say, that I've learned from others, as well as what I've learned on my own. This all came about, I believe, because I had shown this piece in one of my previous videos. And I am very pleased with how this has come out. One of the things that I want to point out to you as we're starting and going into this, that this is a napkin that I've used. And some of the spots I'm noticing that my napkin isn't down as tight as I want it to be. So it needs a little bit more glue on it. And I haven't still decided how I'm going to finish this piece up, but I do love how it looks at this point. And this piece was done just taking ripped up pieces of napkin and just started putting it down wherever I wanted. So that's how I've done this one. The piece we're going to work on today is another one of these, and I should have sanded down the bottom of that, so I might just kick myself off camera to do that, because I will probably put it down around the bottom. And as you can see here, I have a bit of a lip, and I don't want that lip there for when I work on it, so I think I'll get that sanded down. I wish I had done that ahead of time. I also have some spots, so whether it matters or not, I'm not 100% sure, but with this one, when I did it, and I shouldn't be sticking that on top of masking tape because it pulls it off. Anyways, when I was doing this one, there were a couple of spots on it that there were some not sharp pieces sticking out, but pieces that I figured may go through my napkin because it's so fragile. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it here, but there's a couple of little marks that just need to be sanded down. So that's one thing I would recommend that you do. If there's any little spots sticking up from your project that you've already made, then I would recommend just lightly sanding it down. You're going to be covering up or potentially covering it up anyway. So, you know, it doesn't matter if your sand and the coloring goes a little off. Now, this piece, the mold itself, it's more, I think, an issue with me is that I've gotten some spots where I've gotten some air bubbles. This one has a few markings just underneath on the neck area here, which I don't know if I'll go, like I went up fairly high on that one, so maybe it doesn't really matter because we went up high on that one. So I can cover it. The other thing that I've noticed with this one, sort of more so than the other, is I have these spots at the top, as well as I have what appears to be blue on the lips. The one I've already completed, I think I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to color, you know, sort of from the neck up. But this one I might do just because it's got some discoloration that I'm not, you know, totally fussy on. So I might do that with this one. So I am going to sand the bottom down, but I'll go do that off in a moment. I just want to sort of take you through some of the things that I've got to work with. Now, Modpodge is what I've seen a lot of the other people use on their channel, and they specifically use the matte. Now, I don't know if there's a particular reason because it, you know, sticks better or what the deal is, but basically I've seen a lot of people and they're specifically using the matte. So I'm going to recommend that as well. If you find another video and people are using some other product and you happen to find that shortly after, if you can comment below, because I always love knowing what other people are using and how they find other products work, because this works. I've found Modpodge is great for doing something such as the decoupage, I don't like using it as a glue though, because I find, now when I say that, let me rephrase that. Using it just as a basic glue, I don't like Mod Podge for that because I don't think it's tacky enough. For what I've been doing with the decoupage, it's been fine. So I have stronger brands than Mod Podge that I use as true glue products. And this is what I use for Mod Podge specific. Now this is another, you know, I love these little pieces that I make. These little, I guess they're tea lights, little dishes, whatever. I just, as you've seen before, I use that mold a lot for leftover resin. So I took this and I decoupaged this as well. Then what I did when I was finished doing this, I actually used some DecoArt Enchanted Iridescent Top Coat Gold on this. And I like these because these are a bit of a sealer product. The one thing I've noticed, and you have to be especially careful when you're working with napkins, is that the putting of them down, and I'll show you because I'm going to do both tissue paper and napkin, you know, to show you what I've done on a couple of pieces. The napkin gets, because it gets so damp so quickly and it can tear very easily. And I'll show you how I put it down on the piece that I'm decoupaging. You want to be careful. And then I found too that if I do a top coat of the Mod Podge, that it tends to get underneath. Like just Mod Podging once to put the napkin on a piece, you still have to seal it up somehow. So I find the Mod Podge sometimes causes it to get underneath, the glue to get underneath the piece, and then it kind of bubbles up, which, you know, isn't helpful in the long run. This DecoArt is a top coat, and so if I feel the need to get a bit of a shine on things, then I'm using that as opposed to the Mod Podge. I also recommend you give at least 24 hours before you start doing either another coat of Mod Podge if you want, or DecoArt. All I've been doing, just to let you know, is I keep playing with this to find out what works, what doesn't work. Okay, so again, not an expert in this field, so please don't take me as one. This is just what I've been finding as I've been going along. So I do it, get my stuff down, I'll show you what I do, and then I will go over it normally with something like this, but I'll match a color up. So because of the yellow in this, I went with the gold. I could have done a blue because I have blue. Like I buy one of these and I'm buying all the different colors of it. So I find a color that sort of goes along with what I'm doing. And this one I did on the bottom as well and the inside, right? So I've already put one coat of that on. I like the idea of maybe resining these. Have I done that yet? No, I actually haven't done a resin coat on these, and I almost would want to do a pour over top. So again, I don't have one of my stands here, but put it on a stand, pour a little bit of the epoxy resin over top of it, and then let it set up. That way it'll seal it in really well. And again, I would just make sure that you've put a top coat of something on this and then do resin if you want to. But again, you don't have to, and I would recommend going and finding out to see what others are doing as far as a top coat, or, you know, what they're doing if they're not using resin. I wouldn't do UV resin. To me, that doesn't make sense. A two-part epoxy would be much better. Okay, so we've got that. That's what we're using. Okay, some of my other tools, obviously, I have paint brushes that I use. I think some people use foam brushes. I find these are so much easier to clean out. And I've got two sizes here because it depends on what we're working on, the size of the project. What else do I have? Well, I have some tissue paper, and I just recently bought some, and I thought they were actually napkins because of the way they were showing them. But I got about 6 different designs, and we're going to be working with this one, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And this is actually a tissue paper, not a napkin. Now, as far as ripping stuff up goes, and we'll just get this out of the way. I'll get all my sort of what I think is a mind dump out, and then we will get to doing some stuff. So Another tool I have is this by Cricut. The only reason I'm using that is, so for this piece, for example, I have put a decoupage on this side. This is a napkin, but you'll see I've got this hole at the top here, and I want to make sure that I still have that hole. I don't want to decoupage the other side and then be sort of off on where the hole actually is. So all I've done is taken this, and you could take anything, but I had it handy and it works really well. And just after I'd finished putting this down, I just took this and put it through, and it created the hole for me. Easy peasy. So that's what I've got that tool for. I also have a nail file. I use this to clean the edges off. So you'll see for an example of that. But so this piece, as you may recall from a previous video, this was just this sort of lemony color, lemon lime twist, I think it is, on this side, right? So all I did was I figured out what pattern using, again, from here. All right, that's what I had cut out, and I put it on. I used my Cricut tool just to put the hole through. And then once this is fairly dry, I didn't wait as long as maybe, I would wait an hour or two before doing this, but then all I do is go around the edge and just get rid of it so I've got a nice clean edge. And again, I'll show you how I do that when we get to one of the other pieces. So now I've got two sides. What I want to do on this side is just stamp this. I have a number of stamps. Don't ask me how many. Don't want to say. So I want to put a stamp on this side and then just put a coat of UV resin on top of this. I will coat that in UV resin as well, and then I have a two-sided pendant. Again, I don't want the same design on both sides, really doesn't matter, but I have to have both sides done, as you know. All right, so there's that. Now, a couple of different things here. This piece that I created here, I had ripped up the napkin. I had shown you a plate that I did in a previous video, but I didn't get the napkin laid down. I was trying to work with the whole napkin. One, because the design on it, but also because, well, that's what I'd seen other people doing. Personally, not on every piece, and I'll show you why, but on pieces like this, I just find it's easier to rip the pieces up and then work with smaller pieces and, you know, slowly work my way around. It's very meditative. It's just very soothing just to sit and either listen to music or just forget about life in general and just, you know, do a small piece at a time. So this probably took me about an hour and a half, 2 hours to do because of the time like working with each piece independently, but it gave a really cool look as well. So we'll be doing sort of a shredded up. As you can see, I've got some of my tissue paper shredded up, and this is what we're going to be using on this piece. And then we're going to do a couple other little things. So I've already shredded up my paper. I'm going to show you what I did now. Hopefully, did I leave it? Yes, I did. Okay, I want to show you something else, another tool I've got. And I've had this, oh my gosh. Creative Memories, and we're going back many, many years. This is one of their rulers that they came out with, again, many years ago. So I've been using this somewhat to rip up pieces. When it comes to napkins, it's really much easier just to do it with your hands to try and rip it up than it is to use this. This doesn't really work as well. For the tissue paper, I did use it because this has got more stability to it. So I use that. Now, I have no idea if you're interested in this, whether Creative Memories still has this ruler. What I can say is over the years, I've seen different rulers that are out. And Michael's right now, Make Market, has rulers similar like this that they've come out with. So if that's something you're interested in, you may want to check Michael's. It's a new product that's come out, or at least I've seen it in my store. you may want to check that out. Again, you can rip this by hand. You don't necessarily have to. I had the ruler, that's why I used it. Put that off to the side. But it's just as easy to take this and rip it. Now, the other thing I don't like, and again, it's personal preference, is the straightness of the edges here. So I want to make sure my edges are all roughed up. And so I just, when I was working with this piece, in addition to using my ruler, I just sort of ripped off the edges so that I get, I don't know why, for whatever reason, straight lines don't work for me when I'm doing decoupage. So I just ripped up these pieces. Okay, there's no rhyme nor reason to them. I, may have a bit of a theme when I put them on, but for the most part, like, I just strip this stuff up. It's, using my ruler, using my hands just to rip things up. So there's that. Let me just get that out of the way. And as I say, when it comes to ripping this stuff, I mean, just rip it however you want. There's no right or wrong way. How big do you want your sizes to be? Or is there something particular you want? Like, I really like this in here and that over there, so I could just sort of rip it, right? And then rip this one. Okay, like, that's all. And a piece like that, if you had a flat piece, you could put it on, then you could just strip it along here and put that on. So I recommend something, I guess what, we could do is something like that along the back. I think if you're going to do that, just to make it look somewhat symmetrical, would be to do that all the way around. If you were doing a plate, that would be great, and then doing some, more rugged pieces about the same size around it. So again, personal preference and play. That's the biggest thing. I can't recommend that enough. You got to play to figure out what you like and what you don't like. Now, I brought this. So this is the napkin that I used for that and for this. Now, you'll notice, and maybe not, I just had ripped up the napkin and just randomly put pieces on it. I found that when I was doing that, I didn't really like it so much, because you may know that that's a bird on there, you may not. And I'm just thinking the smaller pieces, if you can find a specific like this, that I actually like that better. But again, personal preference to what you do. So when it comes to the napkins, usually they're 2 or 3 ply. This one is actually 3 ply. I will admit, finding the edges on this is a bit of a challenge at times. So it's funny, because when I did this piece, I had some pieces that still had these 2 pieces together. I'd for sure taken off the one. So get rid of that. But I had, ripped some of this, and I left this second piece on it, and other pieces I didn't. One thing, if you do that, is you may notice that this piece and this piece separate from one another. So again, it doesn't matter. I don't know. Like, it worked out for me. But again, you might have to have a little more patience with that. But I'm going to work on taking this off of here. And again, it can be a bit, and it's having long nails like this seriously does not help me out at all. So I'm just trying to get my Cricut tool underneath. And there may be others who have a better way of doing this, like separating it, but this is sort of my go-to. And I try not to get frustrated when I'm doing it. And once you sort of get a little bit going, then it makes it easier. And just take your time doing this, because you can rip if you go too fast, but usually it comes off pretty easy. And you get to see how good your patience is ripping this off, right? Slow and steady wins the race. Now, I also know that some people do not like the edging on here. So it may not be easy to see, or you may see it, but there's a bit of a pattern here, about an inch in all the way around here. And I know some people dislike that, and they've got napkins and they've, you know, wanted to use it for decoupage and then get frustrated with that. To be honest with you, I haven't really had an issue because the glue flattens this stuff out pretty decently. And I know on this piece, and maybe right in here, now this may be part of the napkin or the fact that it's just bubbled up a little bit, but you know, I can see here, all it does is, to me, it adds detail and makes it, you know, adds to the design of the piece you're doing. So it doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you and you don't want to have to deal with that sort of pattern that's in here, can we see it better? Maybe we can see it better on the white. Well, maybe not. So like right in here, there's sort of like a triangle shape, and I'm guessing that like that's part of how they keep the napkin together. They're not really maybe expecting to, and even though like these I bought as napkins. I mean, that's what they were as. I don't think decoupage napkins are any different. It's just how they're held together. I'm not bothered by it. If you are, then you're going to have to stay within the center of your pattern. So for this one, what I want to do is I want another one. And so because this one's going to the right, I'm going to pick this one to go to the left. Now, the other thing people may think about too is the fact that this has a crease in it. Again, not bothered by it because when we put it down, we'll be able to flatten that out, so it won't be a big deal. You do you figure out what's going to work best for you. And then see, we can go around, and we're not going to get all of the bird, but we're going to get enough of them. So it just depends on what you want. So I'm just going to take my trusty little scissors here, because I want a specific pattern, I'm going to cut around so I get that. Now we could stick and do, you know, do one of these guys again, but I don't know. I just want the other one. Again, my video, so I get to do what I want. We could also use this one down here. Like that would fit in our square of things, right? So we could do that, but I'm going to take that guy. And I'll give myself some extra space around it. Now, just because I'm cutting what seems like an extreme amount of this doesn't mean depending if you were doing a bigger piece, you could just, you know, take your other pieces and rip them up and put them on something else. But I want to make sure that I'm getting enough space around him, because I've done that too, where I've cut things too small and then I haven't gotten the design I've wanted. So like that. And then when it comes to gluing him down, so we've got most of them. Now we could balance this out so that we're just losing a little bit of his wings at the top. I guess I should turn that toward you. Okay, so we're just, you know, we may lose a bit at the bottom and a bit at the top, and we can definitely move them over some more. And sort of like that. Okay, so that's what we'll work on doing with that one. And I like the idea of having, again, you could do, like, depending on the pattern, you could do it like this, where you just take, you know, different pieces and just throw it all together and see what you want. I think on the other side of this, I'm going to put something, I can either put something totally different, or we go over and get like this little guy here. Put that up there. We'll get back to him in a second. We will clean our workspace up, so we could do something like that on there. All right. So it just, again, it just depends on what you want to do. And you don't have to have, as you know, I don't do the same on both sides most of the time. And you don't need to either. I thought I would show you, so I know it's not Christmas, but this is a leftover piece of ceramic resin I had. This is using this tissue paper that I've shown you, doing just a complete solid piece, not broken up at all. I was almost going to see about decorating this up for you guys, and I thought, no, I couldn't quite see through my imagination what I wanted to do, but I did a solid on this side, and then on this side I just random. Just so you could see a difference in what you're dealing with and what you potentially want to deal with. I think a piece this size or larger, you can get away with doing the random pieces thrown on it. I thought it would be useful for you to see what I did with just one solid piece. And I'll show you sort of the technique of doing that on this smaller piece. Because you don't, as I was taught from the other videos, you don't put glue on the entire piece. You sort of work your way down on it. And then again, I just used my nail file and went around. Now, there is a bit of a trick when you're using your nail file, because if you've done one side, okay, and again, I'll show you, and then you do this side, and then you start, taking the edgings off. Sometimes you can catch this side as well. So you have to kind of pay attention to that when you're working with it. All right, so we'll put the snowman aside. We'll put this piece aside. I'm not doing that one. Let's clean up the table so that we have less to deal with. All right. And I guess we can move this one off because I don't think we need to see you anymore. And we won't need you right now. All right, okay. So these are just 2 wood blanks that I had, and I just decided I would play with these. So this side, if I'm not mistaken, has a couple of random pieces on it. All right. This side has some random pieces on it. And then I just went full one piece on this side and one piece on this side, just to mix it up. I just wanted to show you some different looks, just so you had an idea. And like, again, it all depends on what kind of look you're going for as to what you do. And I'm considering actually making those into earrings. Or my other thought that came into my head was to do a bunch of these up and then do a resin piece and randomly place them down. If we were to look at our oval mold and just place these down in it and have a randomness from that perspective. So that's a possibility for pieces like that. And I have, wood blanks galore that I can work with. Now, let's do this piece, and I'll show you sort of a couple of, we'll start working on this piece because then we can sit and let it dry. Always make sure if you're going to be using this as a pendant that you have it going in the right direction. I've been shaking up my Mod Podge just because I can. And then I think what I'm going to do is I've sometimes just put it down on my mat here, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Where do I want to put this into? I might just use this because then I can just peel it off. So we'll just do that. Now, let's just make sure that's clean because not that it really matters, but I don't really want any glitter underneath. So we'll just clean this up. This is from my Ice Toyo, yeah, that word I can't pronounce, blender stand. Okay, let's just get rid of that. I hope it's okay. And that you're appreciating sort of the commentary. I just wanted to give you what I know so far, so that you're aware of. So I always put just a little bit at a time down on my pad there. I don't need a lot, and we're dealing with a small piece, so I'm just going to use my small brush. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start at the top, and I have to have it facing me so I can get this the way I want it to. But yeah, so I just take a little bit of glue and start at the top and go around my the hole up here at the top. And you don't have to be real fast, but you have to be fast enough because your glue will start to set up. And also, okay, that had been a question too, whether or not I seal. Now let me just get this started. Whether or not I seal my piece before, I know, I'm so focused on getting this down. All right. And I've been finding it works well if I just pat my finger down to get this stuck down. Now, I gotta get a little bit more glue over there. See, that's what I'm talking about, like getting it down before it sort of starts to set up. And yeah, you want to be careful too. Napkins are so sensitive, if you will. Anyways, getting back to, do I seal my ceramic resin? I haven't been. I don't know if others think it's a good idea to seal it up, but I haven't been. I haven't been. So you'll notice, hopefully, that I'm just putting a little bit at a time down, and then I'm doing my best to make sure I get it as flat as I can. This is when an overhead camera would be working very much better. Right, and then I try not to go over too much the other spots, but occasionally, like if I see something sort of popping up, then I do go back to it. And basically, once you've got this set down, don't really expect to be lifting it back up. The tissue paper, a little bit easier to lift up, but really, yeah, don't have that expectation of the napkin. Unless you're going for a totally different look and it makes sense to rip it. And yeah, like I say, I just keep working at it. And you'll sort of feel your finger might get sticky because the glue's, coming through a little bit. Right? Because it's a napkin and it's only one layer now, one ply. And that's all I do. And then I just I spread the glue out a little bit. Yeah. If I was just putting pieces down randomly, I wouldn't be as... Now, I think I might need some back up there at the top. Just a little bit here. And you'll be able to tell too. You'll notice if you've got some spots missing. And then you just go back and you fill them in. So we'll just get this finished up. Yeah, my hand is in the way, isn't it? Okay, let me try and do it the rest of it this way. So just, half an inch wide, and then just pressing it carefully down. It'll be a little more challenging for me to show you on the body piece, just because I'm going to have to hold it more so than this. So yeah, this was one of the things I had learned when I was watching one of the videos of someone doing the decoupage, was just to do a little bit at a time so that your glue didn't dry up. And I would say to take the pressure off of you doing it. Okay, so I want to one of my wet wipes. And I really should have some water here to clean out my brush, because I'm going to take a couple of moments. But yeah, and then the next thing that I've been known to do is just to cut around this. Now, you don't have to, I just do because I know I'm going to be using my nail file to cut down and around the side, or, you know, file down the sides. And it's just easier if you're not working with a really big piece around that. So one of the other things that I did these, but one of these dotting tools, I don't know if, like, you have to do it on a flat piece, but that just kind of helps to roll it out too. I'm going to have to take one of these over to my other room, and then we'll sit and we'll let that, you know, set up a little bit. And then when we come back to that, then I'll show you what I mean by filing it and putting the hole in it, which may seem really obvious, and that's fair, but I will show you anyway. You can skip past that if you're not interested. So move on. I just want to get some of this glue out of here. Now, I think because I am working, I'm not going to use this really big brush. I think that's too big. I think I'm going to stick with this small one because I am working with the scraps, and I'm also going to get some new glue down. I found yesterday when I was working that it started to gel up, and I was getting some clumps in my glue when I was putting it down, so I had to clean my brush up, and got a little frustrating. So I'm talking through this. You'd just be, you know, merrily going along. Alrighty, so it doesn't matter, right? You know what? I gotta go sand this guy down a little bit. I will be back in about 5 minutes, and then we'll start him because I forgot I gotta sand the bottom of this. Sanding is done. There weren't many spots. I mean, that one I maybe could cover up, but yeah, I just flattened this out. So when we go around at the bottom, we don't have an edge that we're going over that may cut into the paper. So again, this is going to be really random as far as placing these on. I may look at some and go, okay, yeah, I want to see more of that and whatnot, but it's so much a personal preference. And the other thing is that, you know, if you have other product at home that you could, you know, sort of cover up anything you didn't, or like, I think there's a lot of different things you can have and do with this instead of just, you know, decoupaging, unless that's all you want to do. So we'll just start with this little piece here. Again, I'm going to have to sort of maneuver around a little bit to do this, and I'm going to also have to sort of not do this in your general direction, but my own. So we'll start over here. If I almost had a stand for this, which I don't know if I can work like that or not. It's going the wrong way, so I don't really want to work upside down, but I guess I can try working to the side for you again. Okay, so we'll just put a little bit of this glue down. I didn't clean out my paintbrush, just to let you know. Okay, so I'm just randomly putting some glue down, not a lot. And we may want a little bit more because it's tissue paper. And then, as I say, I just put it down, and then just work it into the spaces, right? Because we've got some edges and whatnot. And then I'll just sort of lift it up and I'll apply some more of this paint. Right. Don't yell at me too much if you see my hands getting in the way. I'm being aware of that, and at the same time going, yeah. And you may get little ridges in this. Again, that's not something I'm too bothered by, especially if I end up where a spot that I know I'm going to cover it up with something else. I keep thinking of my finger. And if some of the glue goes, you know, beyond where your paper's going, I don't worry about that either. Like, I don't want to make this too cumbersome of a project for myself. I kind of want it to be, as I say, meditative. I just want to chill and relax doing this. I mean, art's supposed to be fun and relaxing. And as I say, my biggest challenge comes when I'm doing stuff for other people. It's one thing when I do it on this channel and I'm just, you know, doing stuff to show you what I've done, or, you know, I've come up with an idea and want to share with you. I always find it's a totally different scenario when I'm doing for somebody else. Now, here, and I'm going to do it a little bit here too. So let's get this under. I sometimes will take my paintbrush and just go over top like that, just to sort of get the edging down, okay? You don't have to, I don't think. I find sometimes it helps a little bit, just to sort of get it down right against the piece. Now, the other thing you'll notice too is that as I'm putting this down, because of the color, some of my color from underneath is showing through, which is totally cool too. I mean, again, you just have to decide. And like, I could have painted this and then, you know, put my pieces down. And I was doing a resin piece. I took my maple leaf napkin and I was going to use it in a resin piece. And I found that the white just disappeared in the resin. It basically became clear. So you got to be aware of that too. Like, are you going to lose your piece? Now, a disadvantage, I'll tell you right now, putting glue on the top of this is the fact that your finger is going to stick to it. So be aware of that. I've caught myself a couple of times doing that and going, ugh, you didn't want to do that. Now, I have another tip for you. So when I'm dealing with creases like this, sometimes it's easier if you just take your scissors and put a little notch in things so you can get them to lay flatter down. And the same for down here. I'm just going to notch that slightly using my left hand, which isn't easy. And then pushing it down. I don't think I have glue under there. It just makes it easier to get it into gaps like that. Like it flattens down. Now, so you may have to, you know, because we've done that, we've got a little V here, we may have to put another piece in there just to cover that up. So you have to play with it, okay? Just to let you know. You know, you may have to do little things like that because of the size of the piece you're putting in there and because of, you know, how the shape of your piece is going. And I don't know if anyone else is doing shapes like this, like I am. Again, I got to do different things. You know, if doing, you know, like a jar is easier, then all by all means, right? You got to do what's going to work easiest for you. Sometimes I just like having a challenge. And then on the bottom, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue down there. And then I'll just push it around. The same over here. And then sometimes, and I'll just use, I mean, you could put it down and have, right? It's sort of layer over. But again, that's up to you. And if you're going to put your fingers on where you've got your glue on the outside, do it very carefully so that you're not pulling things up and away, because I've done that too. Okay, so we'll get a little piece and we'll put it in there. And I suggest having a wet wipe so you can wipe your fingers off when you get glue on your fingers and you don't want them. We just need a sort of a small piece, don't we? Again, we can just rip this up, eh? And then we can put this right in the center there. Yeah, so again, don't put one thing I'm going to recommend, don't put a lot of glue out, especially if you're, doing random pieces like this, because your glue will dry out. And then something I'm going to do that I haven't done before is I'm just going to take this and sort of fold it a little bit. Right? So we can put it in there. And sometimes using your paintbrush is useful. Now, I get it. I'm covering up a bit of that flour. That's okay. I don't have a problem with that either. It's all about just going with the flow of it. And I think I'm going to have to it's proper. And then we'll just put more glue down. There. All right. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll move across here. And get a little bit more of that flour. And I'm just going to put some glue on top of what's already here. Actually, you know what I want to do? I'm going to move this down a little further so I can get more. Okay, I need to move this toward me. If you're watching this on, I have such a small little screen to see that it makes it hard. So hopefully you're watching this on something where you can, even with my hands being in the way, you're able to see what I'm doing, okay? I do like to try and get in where those little crevices are so that, you can see a little bit of the design. Not that it's a big deal. Again, yeah, when you're first starting these out, I just think to myself, okay, am I getting enough glue down? Am I, covering up all the spots? I know with every time I do this, it'll get a little bit easier. My practice will get better, and I'm doing my best just not to aim to get it perfect, because that'll just screw me up every time. Yeah, and see, I've got a little fold there. That's okay. Again, adds dimension, adds character. Just trying to get this down. And then I'll go back and fix some of these other spots up, eh? And try not to get frustrated with it. Just take your time. Because as soon as you start getting frustrated, that's when you're gonna start making the mistakes, and then I don't want to see you get frustrated with it. You just gotta take it slow. And I think, you know, when you put a top coat on this or something, that'll help with some of these spots that may not have adhered as well as you'd like them to. So I've gone over here. As I said, with the other one I did, I've noticed some spots where it hasn't set right down into it. So I'm going to have to go back over it. But, you know, not a big deal. Like I say, take your time. Try not to get frustrated with it. And just enjoy the process. Like for me right now, I'm absolutely enjoying the process and showing this to you. I am trying to do my best job possible, but appreciating that, you know, I am doing and talking at the same time. And because I want to give you as much information as possible, so it kind of takes away from my, you know, doing a really good job. But hopefully you're appreciating, or, you know, it's working for you. Now I'm going to do that up and under there because it's, yeah, so there's a spot here. I'm just going to run my hand over that. I think it really is better if you can get underneath in some ways, but we'll maybe put a piece over top of that. I won't do all of this with you, but I figure if I do, you know, sort of enough of this, just to give you an idea. And I kind of like the idea of wrapping pieces under, like from here and then down to the bottom. And the bottom, for the most part, really doesn't matter how that's going to look at the end of the day, but, you know, we'll do one more piece and we'll do it up here again. What do we want? We'll do this. We haven't got any of this on, so we'll do this piece here. Now I've got a little bit of a bulge there, so I'm going to see if I can't get some glue under that just to push it down. Again, the wet wipes are helpful, especially because you're going to start getting glue stuck to your finger. All right. Okay. So we'll put a little bit of glue on that. We won't overlap it too much. Put you down. And occasionally I end up putting a piece underneath. And when I say that, so at a corner, I'll end up bending it down, even though I don't want to. So you can see how this can become time consuming, especially, well, I think even if you're doing a big piece, like I did on the one side of the snowman, it may not take, as I found for myself, that you've got to be, I find it a little more challenging. Like on the small piece, not so much, but on the bigger pieces, I don't know. I kind of find this a little more relaxing and easier to do than when I do the, just a solid piece. And maybe that's just because I haven't had a lot of practice on this and I need more, right? Now I'm going to see if I can get that pressed down. Okay. Just going to all right. And this, I'll just put a little bit on over here. Because that's where I'm going to stop with you guys. But that's just to give you a little bit of a, you know, a taste of, and we could take this piece, if it's big enough. If it's not quite big enough, I was going to say if we could put that over, but it's a little too small. Maybe we take the bird. Bird's the word, right? And then wrap that around. All right. And I'd have to start here and then go around. But anyway, that's my process basically in a nutshell. I really wish I had some water over here, but anyway, let me just clean up my glue. We're going to go back to the one piece and then that'll be it. That's sort of my, you know, my decoupage knowledge, if you will. I'm going to have to scrape glue off my fingers, but yeah. So that's what we've got so far. I think it's going to look really cool. I'll do a favor and I'll work on getting this done for the video on Thursday so that you can see what it looks like and then whether or not I've done anything with the face, okay? And you'll get to see the whole thing. But that gives you an idea of what my process is with this doing decoupage. And as I say, it's, you know what, when you need a break, you know, from everything, this is kind of a cool way of doing it. It's just, yeah, your mind's focused here. And with art, that's a beautiful thing, I think, anyway. Just get my glue off of there and then desperately have to get my paintbrush into water. Just wrap it in that for a second. All right, let's go back to our bird. All right, here we go. So I don't know how long I've been chatting away to you on that, but just to show you what I do is, and it doesn't matter which side, sometimes depending on how the thickness of what you're working with, you may want to use the rougher side versus the softer side, but I'm going to use the softer side because I know it doesn't take, and then I just carefully go around and you'll be able to tell when you've gotten through. And then I rotate and I just go around the whole thing. Now, it's like I say, it's probably a better, you know, I'm doing this on the fly because of this video, but I'd probably leave this for a couple of hours to set up. I mean, the glue may be dry or relatively dry. And it's always nice, you know, when you get it off and you see sort of your final product, it's kind of cool. And I mean, you could even use, if you wanted to, you know, make a bunch of these up and then just have them hanging around your house. Or use it in a, like in a sun catcher kind of fashion. So here's a way we're taking sort of different artistic ability, you know, working with the ceramic resin, you know, getting it all colored and whatnot, and then doing decoupage, which I'm finding very relaxing. And the other thing you could do is you could paint the sides if you wanted to. The other thing I'm also going to recommend to you, as I'm thinking, is just to, you know, wipe this off, especially if you're going to be putting resin or something like that on top of it. Just make sure it's clean all the way around. So you could paint the sides, as I was saying. You could put, because you know I'm into my bling. So again, like, what do you want to use this for? How do you want to decorate this up? This has been, I have this out. That's why I'm pulling this versus another color. I mean, I have black that would go with this. I have the gold. This is, I think, the iridescent. This is the iridescent. I've got silver, but something like that. Or other crystals if you have it, right? And then if you used it as sun catcher, it's going to catch, well, not so much here, but it'll catch the light. And it just adds a little bit more to it. And again, whether you put a top coat of resin on this, whether you just seal it with some other kind of sealer that you have, again, the choice is yours, what you do with it. I like the idea of putting resin on it. And then as far as that hole goes, that's where this tool comes in handy. And all I do is, there's the hole, and there we have it, all done. Easy peasy. So that is it. That's all I have for you on this process of decoupage that I do. Again, I find it extremely relaxing, a lot of fun. I like to, just pointing out color-wise, that this piece was the yellow up here and the blue down here. So it gives you a bit of a, you know, dimensional look to it. So something to take into consideration when you're picking out what you put on your piece too is, what colors are we going to be covering up? Like, I have some very dark napkins over there that would have just totally covered this up, but yeah. So something a little different. And as I say, so we've got that so far. I'll carry on. I'll be going probably up right, I might go right up to just underneath the chin there on this piece. But yeah, that's all I can share with you on decoupage. That's all I've got. I hope you found this helpful. Again, I'm up for people giving me suggestions on different things they may want to see. If I know how to do it, I don't have a problem doing a video about it. If I'm not sure, then I would just comment back to you that I'm not sure, and you'd be best off doing some research and finding some other people to follow that may be doing something you are interested in. But as I say, I like to keep things different. And so, you know, this for me is a way of being different, again, on working with pieces I've already made and how can I make them a little bit different. And so doing these pieces, I get to be a bit of a fashion designer, which I kind of like. That's it. That's all. Thank you for watching. Comment below whether, you know, what you thought, whether you've done any of this, and if you found these tips helpful. And if you have someone who you follow who's doing this that you think would be someone I might be interested in following, yeah, please put that in the comments below. I hope you have a great creative day, whatever you get up to. Again, to my subscribers down the States, enjoy your Memorial Day, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye for now.